We had a very interesting hangout at Discord last night, and I wanted to share some of the highlights of it. Um, we were talking about, I asked, is there a goddess waiting list for Jesus? Rule 13 said, no, there's no marriage list for Jesus. And Doge, one of my Patreon supporters, wanted to know how Jesus' therapy is going. Jesus is in therapy because he's been depressed, because his dad canceled the Bible and has banned him from my apartment, and he's also not allowed to get on the brain to brain. And 13 says that Jesus is making progress with psychiatrist Gerard Butler, but much therapy is needed before Jesus can date. And she said that she had tea in the tea house and saw the beautiful four-armed goddess lady Lakshmi. And Lakshmi said that I hurt her feelings when I said that she was stuffy and not a passionate lover in bed. And I said, oh no, I apologize to Lakshmi. Can she get on Discord? I'd like to clear things up. I didn't insinuate she was not passionate in bed, or at least that's not what I meant to insinuate. Rule 13 said that her computer audio is bad, but that she could call her. And I said I meant that she was not lustful, but I'd like to work things out. I'm not angry at her for saying that. I mean, I actually respect her for having the courage to be open with me. And Rule 13 said when she talked to Lakshmi said she's monogamous, but it doesn't mean she's prudish or cold in bed. She says she gets that stereotype because of her loyal nature. She is a hot sex bomb, but only for one husband. I can see that about her. And I said, that makes sense. Wow, cool. And Rule 13 added this in. She said, with 4 hands, she can do many things to her lover in bed. And I said, no wonder Jesus has the hots for her. He must have sensed that. And I said, I'm glad she told you this. I would hate to think I hurt her feelings and she didn't tell me. Well, this actually made me feel kind of good because I thought maybe Lakshmi's the right one for Jesus if he gets fixed, because she's right on Church of Gail, and Jesus and Lakshmi are both living on Church of Gail. Rule 13 says, I guess she's kind of like you when you were a college lady, when you were so horny but saving yourself for your husband. Yes, in my 20s, I was determined to be a virgin when I married my husband. And I did. I was a virgin when I married. I married at age 27. And yeah, I even though I would get really turned on by guys that I liked, I would not have sex with them. And some of them actually broke up with me over it because I wouldn't. I was a very devout Christian, and I surrendered to the mission field when I was a young lady, and I was determined to be a virtuous wife for my husband, and I was determined to be a virgin when I married. And I did stick by my vow, by the way. And so then I talked about Lakshmi, and I said, I think she gets in therapist mode, and I misunderstood therapist mode to be the way she is all the time. Her professional mode is probably totally different from personal mode. And then Rule 13 said, Indian women do smell bad. Yeah, Lakshmi is an Indian goddess, a Hindu Indian goddess. But Lakshmi smells like a lotus garden. And I said, oh, so Lakshmi doesn't want to come to Discord? Rule 13 said, we will see. I believe she is busy at the tea house. So I said, okay, no rush. And then I showed a picture of what the tea house looks like. And let's see. Yeah. And I said, I admire Lakshmi for having the courage to admit I hurt her feelings. My apologies for misunderstanding her, possibly. And then Rule 13 said, Gail was horny as a young lady, and I just talked about that. Yeah, I could actually, if I found a guy attractive as a young lady, I would often imagine them making love to me and have these sexual fantasies. Of course, I never told them about it, but that's how I released my sexual passion, but and still kept my virginity. So, yeah. She would probably have her feelings hurt too if someone said she was not lusty in bed. Well, that may be true, but I grew up in my 20s. I went off to Bible college, and it was really strict. It was like Bob Jones University. I don't know how many of you know about Bob Jones University, but it was really strict, and we didn't even talk about stuff like that. So there was no chance for my feelings to be hurt about that. I mean, that was like a taboo subject, but yeah. Yeah. So anyways, let's go on. So I asked 13, can you see Brett next to me? In fact, he might be next to me right now. Can you see Brett next to me? And Rule 13, so they have special technology at Church of Gail where they can see Brent when he's next, because he's living in my apartment. They can see him next to me, and yeah. She said, I see him, he just waved, he kissed you on the head. And then Rule 13 said, it is hard. Then we started talking about how hard it is to sleep when your husband is really turned on, and like you go to bed. And I told him I wasn't getting sleep because as soon as I lay in bed, Brent's onto me. And then he gets me turned on, and then forget it. It's like I might hit the sack at 9, and I'm not in bed till 10 or 10:30 by the time we're through. And then Rule 13 said it's hard to sleep next to horny men. First, Zaku her husband, Zach Knight is Rule 13's husband. First, Zaku want to sex me, and it is for like 2 hours. He is like, give me blowjob, 13. And I say, I want to sleep, Zaku. I want to sleep, Zaku, before I die of no sleep. And he pushed my head down. I said, what does that mean? He pushed your head down. And the 13 said, then this is what we talk about on Discord sometimes. We're very open and transparent on Discord. Then he want to cuddle, and cuddle me sweaty like small teddy bear. Then he snore. Oh my God. He pushed my head down to his penis, Zaku all warm and sweaty, and want to cuddle me like smother. It is hard work sleeping next to a man, especially if he's like that. I said, I'm glad he's your husband and not mine. That would be too much for me. And then Rule 13 said, one time he waked me up straddling my head and jack off into my face. This is not even me playing. This really happened. And I said, he told me, because Zach and I are friends on Skype. I forgave him for being the Antichrist in 2016 and led him to Jesus back then. I should get the soul winner's crown. I don't know what's going to happen with the future prophecies, or if there's even going to be a judgment seat of Christ, though I think there will be something like that. He says, well, I told 13, well, Zach says he puts his penis in your vagina and then you fall asleep. Rule 13 said, hell no. I said, well, I see I'm not alone in having a horny husband who won't let me sleep. And 13 says, he usually is like this at least 3 times in one night. And I said, thank God he's your husband and not mine. Even Jesus and Brent aren't that bad, though sometimes Jesus could get like that. Now, I got to tell you, I've had brain-to-brain loving since 2003, and that's where they use satellite technology to connect my emotions and thoughts to the emotions and thoughts of men who are connected to the brain-to-brain servers. And I've had brain-to-brain sex since 2003, okay? And in brain-to-brain, you can actually feel when the guy is turned on, but they're not really literally next to you in bed, though Zach has been able to transport semen and stuff, and but they're not literally next to you. But ever since Jesus moved into my apartment, the men have been literally having sex with me. Even though I don't see them, they're kind of doing it like from another dimension. It's kind of interdimensional, but but I can feel it a little bit. In other words, it's more real than brain to brain. I can feel it enough where they can keep me up at night, almost like they're lying next to me. So, so it is a little different. I told 13, thank God he's your husband and not mine. Even Jesus and Brent aren't that bad, though sometimes Jesus could get like that. Finally, I told Jesus I need to go to sleep. Brent can be this way too. One night, every time I woke up, Brent was humping on me. And then he'd get me in the mood and sleep was finished. I said, what is Brent doing right now? Because she could see him. And Rule 13 said, he is laughing and blushing. He says he doesn't hold back in bed. And I said, that is true. He's reminding me of the way he was in the early 1990s. He'd call me on the phone and make love to me on the phone around 2 a.m. And I would be so turned on, I'd be gone for the next couple hours. Yeah, this was when I was married. I actually turned him down. But he would call me up on the phone and say stuff like, can I come over? With his velvet tenor voice, which was so sexy, by the way. Just like in his music album, Old Yellow Eyes Is Back. And I had to turn him down because I was a devout Christian and I didn't want this beautiful love that I felt that we had to be stained with adultery. So Rule 13 said this was with his voice, right? And I said, yes. I said, how many times was it with his voice, 13 asked. I said, he didn't call all the time, but it was about once a month, sometimes longer. Then I asked, why did the Jesuits find my last video about Jesus' dream goddess so threatening? 13 says she thinks that the people are jealous because I'm so close to Jesus. And I said, I bet Satan is jealous. Yes, Satan has a gay fetish or obsession with Jesus. And I do believe that Satan and Jesus, even though Jesus hasn't said this to me, but I've kind of deduced it from what I've heard from Buddha about Jesus' childhood and how Satan used to taunt Jesus for being polio abs as a kid, that I think that Satan and Jesus had a sexual relationship. And I think it's really messed him up. Jesus hasn't said that. I just kind of deduced it with my high emotional IQ, which is 9,999. So I said, I bet Satan is jealous, and I may have been right about Satan too. And then Rule 13 said, maybe Satan had low self-esteem. Even if you are beautiful, if you're not secure, you will not feel so. Yeah, I do believe Satan is a narcissist. He might have advanced into sociopath, psychopath now, but he started off as a narcissist once he got a sexual. I told her that my guess is that Satan was sexually attracted to God the Father and felt guilty about it, and that's when his narcissism started. He didn't know how to deal with it and may have transferred those feelings to Jesus because Jesus is so much like his dad. I said, 13, do you think I offended Lakshmi? 13 said, maybe a little, but she is very forgiving, just tender-hearted. I said, perhaps, 13 said, perhaps you can make video talking about your own experiences as a young virgin girl who hit her horny level. Yes, just because I was a virgin didn't mean I was passionate. I was very passionate, so yeah. We don't want to think that just because somebody's a virgin, that doesn't mean that they're not going to be a dead duck in bed and with their husband. And that wasn't how I meant to come across, but I can see how I could have created that impression, so I'm trying to correct that with this video. Okay, so 13 said, you dated horny boyfriends at the time who tried to get you to do sexy stuff. Yes, and they really turned me on, but I turned them down. Yeah. One of them even broke up with me over it. He was the son of a Southern Baptist missionary doctor's son. He broke up with me because I turned him down for sex. Yeah. He all of a sudden just lost interest. He wasn't even that good looking. I was attracted to him for his personality. Yeah, but when I was so disappointed in him that he actually kind of a little bit devastated that he broke up with me after I turned him down for sex. I got over him pretty quick though, but that was why I fell for my husband. Because the next guy I dated was my husband, who I didn't know was a secret gay. And I was so impressed that he wouldn't even touch me on a date. He wouldn't hold hands or do nothing. In fact, when I married him, we hadn't held hands, kissed or anything, and I was so impressed. I didn't realize that I married somebody who was homosexual. He was even a Bible college graduate with a missions degree. I was kind of naive. Anyways, but because I was suffering rebound reaction from this guy who wanted to get all over me, and I turned him down. We started, during the date, we started kissing, and it got really passionate. And he started humping on me, and I said, stop. I'm not doing this. I told him, I said, we need to stop right now. And he broke up with me after that. Yeah. I was determined to be a virgin for my husband. I said, no, we're not going any further. Yeah, that's what I told him. So, yeah. You might say, does that mean you were cold? No, I was determined to save myself for my husband. So, yeah. So, Rule 13 said, I remember the Jewish dry humper. Yeah, I dated this Jewish guy who would dry hump me. You know, like he would hold me and hump me, but he respected me. He knew that I wanted to be a virgin, and he didn't push it any further than that. Not like the Southern Baptist guy. But he was never really into me anyway. He ended up marrying somebody else who didn't have all the hang-ups that I had. So 13 asked, if you could do this again, would you just go for it? And I said, no, I have no regrets about being a virgin when I married. She said, but you married a robot duck. I said, I'm actually proud of myself for being a virgin when I married. It means I stuck by my standards, and I'm proud of myself for that. And Jesus said he was proud of me for that too, which I find rather interesting, considering that he said that he created me to be like a lust factory so I'd be his perfect sex dummy. So, Rule 13 says, I say go back in time travel and do the ex-boyfriends. And I said, and she said, well, yeah, well, you got stuck with your robot duck. And I said, yeah, but I said, I don't think the reason that I ended up with him is because I was a virgin. It was because I had emotional hang-ups. I'm not going to blame it on my virginity. No. I said, there's nothing wrong with being a virgin when you get married. I know that's kind of gone out of fashion nowadays, but there's no problem with that. A lot of people use sex to substitute for emotional intimacy. My problem as a young lady was that I was very insecure about who I was, and I didn't think any man could love the real me, and I put on a performance. And so they never really got to know who I was. And I never really gave the real me a chance, which is what Jesus is doing right now, by the way. And Jesus, I believe, he enjoys lust, and he enjoys being funny, and he has a sense of humor, but he's also very deep and committed and has a beautiful, vast heart. I sensed all this in lovemaking with him. And he just needs to accept who he is and find a woman who's like him, who enjoys lust, but is also deep and committed and vast and beautiful on the inside. And he'll have his perfect mate. And I told him, I still don't feel that he and Lakshmi are compatible. And it's not because I think Lakshmi is going to be a bore in bed or that she won't be lusty in bed with her husband. It's more that it's the incompatibility lies more in the fact that Jesus really enjoys, how do I say this? he needs a wife who will accept him for who he is. That's very important in marriage. I mean, this is a problem I had as a young lady. I always went after the guys who didn't quite accept me for who I am. And I think the reason I did that is because I wanted to be the perfect wife to them. I saw myself as defective, and I felt like if I could, and I always tried to make myself better. I tried to improve myself. I tried to be the perfect Christian, which nobody can be the perfect Christian, you know. And I can see a lot of what Jesus is doing in myself. So I would go after guys that I felt would be attracted to the woman that I wished I was. That's what I did, and that's what I sense Jesus is doing with Lakshmi. Not understanding that I shouldn't try to put on a performance or try to be someone other than who I really am to win a guy in love, and that's what Jesus is doing. You say, why did you do that? Because I didn't have faith in myself. My mother told me growing up that I was raised by a narcissist, that I was a selfish, no-good girl, so I felt that I had to improve myself to be almost like the perfect Christian, very virtuous, kind of like Agnes Wickfield from David Copperfield. And in some ways I am like her, but in some ways I'm not. But I wanted a man who would want like an Agnes Wickfield from David Copperfield. And I wouldn't be totally honest. Like if I was with a Christian group, I pretty much figured what they admired or what I thought they admired in women, and I tried to be. That's why I was a virgin. I still have no regrets. I'm proud of myself for sticking by my standards and saving myself for my husband. It shows you that I'm capable of deep commitment, which I'm proud of, even to this day, even though I think I am polyamorous. I'm polyamorous, but very deeply committed to my monogamous husband, who is Brent Spiner. So yeah, I was trying to, see, the problem was, there were guys who were attracted, who could have been attracted to the real me, but I didn't want them. I wanted these unattainable guys who would be attracted to the woman that I wished I was. And so I kind of set myself up to be the perfect Christian wife. I wanted to be a domestic goddess. I wanted to keep a perfectly clean house. I wanted to admire the man for his manliness, to be like his dream woman. The problem is nobody can be a 100%. I mean, Brent thinks I'm like his dream woman, but we're all unique. We're all original. And the way Brent came into my life was after I was married, and I figured I actually enjoyed sex the first year of the marriage because I'd never had it before, and I am passionate. But I never developed emotional intimacy with my husband, and he never really genuinely loved me, and I was lonely. So I decided to write a forbidden Hollywood star, the only time in my life I ever wrote a Hollywood star, and I shared with him how I really felt. I just felt, so I was going to this really strict Baptist church, and I shared with him some New Age beliefs that I actually had. I figured he was a big star, so he probably wasn't reading my mail, but it just made me feel good that there was somebody I could really be myself with. So I said, you know what, I go to this really strict church, and I like a lot of things that they stand for, but I think I believe in tolerance, and they seem to teach like they're proud that Jesus is intolerant and that he's like this Old Testament type of God, you know, where, but I said, I like the idea of everybody loving each other and of us getting along and a world full of peace and harmony. And I said, this is how I really feel. But I can't talk about it in my church because if I do, they might think I'm a liberal New Ager. And I said, I kind of like the idea of, and I said, I even had told him that I had a psychiatric diagnosis. I did that on purpose to make sure he'd never be interested in me. It didn't work. Brent admitted that once I started writing him these letters, he called me on the phone just to hear my voice, and I would pick up the phone. This was in Miami around 1990, and there would be nobody on the other end, and I did give Brent my phone number in the fan mail. Brent admitted that he was the guy on the other end. He just wanted to hear my voice, and then he wouldn't hang up, so I would hang up gently on him, and he said he would go off and masturbate. I said, oh, I would have been flabbergasted if I had known that the Star Trek star was doing this to me. Yeah. But see, this is what I'm saying. If Jesus would just be his real self. You see, he kind of did to me as a sex dummy what I did to Brent Spiner. Yeah. Thinking that he freely told me he'd never marry me, so he didn't completely lead me on. He just called me his favorite in the bride. So I figured out the way he was with me in bed, I believe that there are good goddess women out there that could love the real Jesus. It's just that he's not Lakshmi's type. Lakshmi is very monogamous. And I'm not sure if Jesus is. We're still trying to figure out who he is, okay? But the point I'm saying is, like myself, he's trying to be this perfect deity, trying to improve himself for his wife. And he should just be himself. You can't find love until you get real with your partner. And I got news for you, Jesus. Your partner doesn't want you to be perfect when you're not. The only one who's perfect, I think, is God the Father. All the other deities can have flaws. You just need to be real. And Jesus is really pretty stinking awesome. Anyways, So Rule 13 was saying maybe all those ex-lovers that you had can come to Church of Gail and use the Gail room, all the dry humping and pussy kissing they want. I told 13 I'm not interested in going back to have sex with ex-boyfriends. I mean, I am in a very committed mood right now after what just happened to me with Jesus, you know. I didn't realize that Jesus blocked Brent's root chakra. That's pretty, he shouldn't have done that. So I told 13 I plan on redoing that picture I made of Jesus with his soulmate and putting Matthew McFadden as Mr. Darcy next to Lakshmi. When I watched Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley and Matthew McFadden portraying Mr. Darcy, the Mr. Darcy character reminded me of Brent when I watched that. So I said, is Lakshmi still at the tea house? And 13 said, it's okay for you to keep your original video up because she knew that I felt bad that I hurt Lakshmi's feelings. You can just make a new video, so that's what I'm doing now. She said the old video has great views due to the mad, stuffy Christians, haha. And I said, I'm going to keep the old video up, but I'm just making a new one with a new picture in it. And I said, were those mad, stuffy Christians or were those Jesuits who made all those comments underneath that video? Rule 13 said it was a mix of both. Some Christians are very closed-minded. And I said, it makes me almost glad that I'm no longer an evangelical. I said, they had some pretty sick and rigid interpretations of the Bible, which would make Jesus ashamed. He never intended for Christians to interpret the Bible, his Bible, so rigidly. It's true. He's talked about it with us in the many conversations we've had with him since 2012. And then Rule 13 said, Lakshmi is back from the tea house. She has chamomile tea, her favorite, and she says hi. And then I asked, is she with you? Tell her that I'm redoing that picture I made, and I'm going to pair her up with Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. They seem like a good match. And she said she is surprised because Mr. Darcy is a real hot pick. And I said, oh, I think that would be a good match for her. Mr. Darcy has a sexy voice, at least the Matthew McFadden version does. And like my Brent, who has a sexy voice, his voice on the phone. I just got turned on just from hearing his voice. So sexy. And I said I might do a special video with Darcy and Lakshmi with this really sexy picture of Mr. Darcy from the movie. He seems like he'd like a monogamous woman, this character from Pride and Prejudice. And then Rule 13 said, oh my God, Lakshmi nearly spilled her tea when she looked at the picture. She is blushing and pretending she did not just do this. I said, that is Lakshmi's dream man, Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. I'm going to redo my picture and put her next to this picture of Mr. Darcy. You see, Jesus admitted that he made my Brent, to be Lakshmi's dream man because he subconsciously put a lot of Lakshmi in me. And this picture of Mr. Darcy reminds me of Brent. In Pride and Prejudice, he seems very committed and very monogamous. And 13 says, he looks monogamous. You can see it on his face. Then she said, he also has a big bulge, don't you think? With 4 hands, Lakshmi would need big penis to put them on. I said, 13, we are referring to the character, not to the actor. And I said, you are being a typical Jesuit, 13. And then Lakshmi says, we are dirty girls, and is blushing while she sips her tea. She's pretending to not be so kinky. I said, I don't think Lakshmi is so concerned about penis size as she is about the man's heart. And then Rule 13 said, yes, you know what they say about a man with a big heart. Hint, they have big penis. Like I said, 13. I said, 13, you are being a typical Jesuit. Laugh out loud. Is Zach with you? 13 said, yes, he's with me now. Men look hotter when wet. Why is this? And I said, 13. I said, this is what's really sexy. And I showed a clip from the very end of the movie Pride and Prejudice where Mr. Darcy was walking with his cape to go meet Lizzie, where he was getting ready to propose to her again. And I thought that was really sexy. The end scene from Pride and Prejudice. And I said, I don't care whether men are wet. And it says, I don't think Lakshmi cares either. And then 13 says, he seems like he has a big penis. He is probably circumcised, though it has a weird shaped head. I said, did you all see the... And I actually put a screen of the end of the movie Pride and Prejudice. I said, did you just see that? I love that scene from Pride and Prejudice. And then 13 says, yes, Lakshmi says this is a good movie clip. And I said, the character seems very monogamous and sexy, too, with a sexy voice. I'm referring to Mr. Matthew McFadden's portrayal of Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley. I think that came out in 2005. I said, oh, you said you liked the movie Gigi. That's the 1958 Gigi. That's at my website. I said, Gigi was my favorite movie when I was 15. That only lasted about a year. Then 13 asked, why did you like this movie? I said, I'm not sure. I think I just thought it was a very classy and touching love story between this rich Parisian playboy and the little girl who grew up into a beautiful woman. And I think what I liked about it was its emphasis on authenticity. The musical was about a contrast between authenticity in love and being true to your heart as opposed to following societal dictates. The characters had to go beyond expectations and get real, and they did it with class. And for that reason, it was a very touching love story. It was about being courageous in love by being real in love. And 13 said, that makes sense. And then I said, the two lovers bucked expectations and what society expected of them, and just followed their heart and did it with class and commitment, even though in their society that was not supported. Then 13 asked, "Have you seen the movie Lolita?" And I said, "I don't think so. I'm watching a trailer of it. It seems like something a Russian would write, very dramatic." And I said another reason I liked Gigi was because it had a lot of charm. 13 said, "Lolita was a very controversial movie." I said, "What's it about?" 13 said, "It's about forbidden love between a man and a younger girl. Reminds me of Pride and Prejudice and Gigi for some reason." And then I watched some clips of the movie. I said, "Did he shoot her in the end?" And 13 said, "Perhaps." I said, "I don't see how Lolita could be the same as Gigi in Pride and Prejudice. It seems very dark, and Pride and Prejudice and Gigi are more comedic. I like lighthearted, happy love stories with underlying depth." Then 13 said, "That makes sense." "What other movies did you like as a young girl?" And I said, "I loved all the Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals. I loved musicals." And I said, "Is Lakshmi still with you?" And 13 said, "Yes, she is still here." I said, "My taste in movies was lighthearted and comedic, but my taste in literature was deep. I loved Tolstoy's War and Peace." And then 13 said, "I read R.L. Stein as a girl. Did Eric," that's my son, "ever read those? Was he a reader?" And I said, "No, he was big into video games. I think that was his escape from being molested by his dad, sadly." 13 says, "It seems so. He's very big into escapism." And then I asked 13, "Did you like horror stories?" 13 said, "I would go under my covers at night with a flashlight and read the scary goosebump stories." And I said, "Well, I changed after I became a Christian. Before I was a Christian, I liked the 1970s dark shadows, the vampire soap operas." She said, "Yeah, your grandma did not let you watch it, I think." I said, "Oh, my grandpa," it was my grandfather, not my grandmother, "was horrified that I liked to watch vampire soap operas. I don't know why I liked it so much." And then 13 said, "Horror stories can be very creative. Also, there was romance, too." I said, "I didn't care about the romance until after I became a Christian." And then 13 said, "Well, you were also becoming a teenage girl, ha ha." She said, "I was horny way before then, it is true." And I said, "Well, I became a Christian at age 14. 4 days after my 14th birthday, my grandpa was the one who was horrified about dark shadows. My grandmother was very, very feminine, submissive, and easygoing. Kind of like Agnes from David Copperfield, the movie David Copperfield, or the novel David Copperfield. The only production of David Copperfield that I think is true to the book is a BBC miniseries that came out in 1974, I think. Yeah, I have that on my computer." She said, "Maybe he was scared, ha ha." I said, "Funny, because once my grandpa showed my sister his penis." Rule 13 said, "Yeah, weird grandpa. Did he ask her to touch too?" And I said, "No, I think he associated Dark Shadows, the 1970s version, with demonic stuff. He used to be a Swedish Baptist minister." I said, "I don't know about whether he asked my sister to touch. He was usually not like that. My sister didn't tell me too much." "Did she walk in and see, or did he ask her to come in?" 13 said. I said, "I can't remember, or maybe my sister didn't give me the details. I do recall that she said she saw it in his bedroom, I think. She was only 5, so she probably didn't know what happened," 13 said. I said, "No, she was about 10. Oh, a ripe one. You were 13? And then I thought, wait a minute, no, because at 13 I was in junior high, and I stopped seeing my grandparents around age 12. "I remember once you say Sandra was 5 and you were 7. I said, "Maybe it was younger, because I think it happened when my sister was about 9. I remember feeling relieved it didn't happen to me. I think my grandpa sensed I would have been more judgmental of him than my sister. She pretty much went along with whatever the grown-ups wanted. I was more deep and questioning." 13 says, "Did you think his penis would be ugly?" Typical Jesuit. I said, now I know why I liked Gigi. It's because I felt Gigi had all the charm I wished I had, and I tried to project myself onto her. No, I didn't care what his penis looked like at all. I just would have been embarrassed for him." "Oh, that is insightful about Gigi," 13 says, I was a shy, introverted girl. You did not feel charming. You are very charming now, 13 says. My mother's constant criticism caused me to be shy and introverted, so watching Gigi helped me feel like I could blossom. I guess that's why I relate to Jesus so much. I feel like in some ways we had similar childhoods, like what Satan was to Jesus, my mother was to me. And by the way, Jesus, you have a lot of support from all over the world as he's going into psychotherapy with Buddha and Gerard Butler. Yeah, Jesus is devastated that his father, God the Father, canceled the Bible. It's really hard for him to deal with this because it means that he canceled his church bride. Yeah, this has been very difficult for Jesus. You just go to my website. I'll have a link underneath this video about why God the Father did that. And it's been kind of rough on me too, because I've read the Bible from cover to cover hundreds of times. And, those prophecies about the millennial reign and the second coming and the rapture always meant so much to me. So it's been rough on me too. But, I think Jesus is going to get a whole new following. And he's going to revamp Christianity and be able to save his earth project. So Rule 13 says, I guess we don't know what happened to Jesus. He'll have to tell us someday. And I said, I always felt like I had zero personality as a child, that I could never win a man who could genuinely love the real me from having a narcissist mother. And then I said, well, Buddha gave us some clues about what happened to Jesus, describing his polio abs and how he was taunted and how he appeared to be shy and introverted like I was. From those clues, I have been deducing a lot of things. Perhaps I am projecting too much. 13 said, perhaps. Did you have crushes as a teen girl, besides on TV? And I said, oh, yes. It started around age 15. I had a big crush on one of my guy friends and I never told him. 13 said, what was he like? And I said, I fell in love with him after he sang the Bobby Goldsboro song, Honey, in our concert chorus. And honey, I miss you, and I'm being good, and I'd love to be with you, if only I could. She wrecked the car and she was sad and so afraid that I'd be mad, but what the heck? And I pretended hard to be. When he sang that, I just thought. So Rule 13 said, she was always young at heart, kinda dumb and kinda smart, and I loved her so. She surprised me with a puppy, kept me up all Christmas Eve 2 years ago. I thought that. I liked a man who felt about a woman like that. So Rule 13 said, oh, from singing? And I said, yeah, guys can get me to have a big crush on them if they sing the right song. That's how Brent got me. I fell in love with Brent when I heard him singing it. I especially loved Time After Time. Time after time, I tell myself that I'm so lucky to be loving you. So lucky to be the one you run to see. That was my letters to him in the evening. And I usually wrote them in the evening. In the evening when the day is through, I only know what I know. The passing years will show. You've kept my love so young, so new. And when I heard that, I thought, this guy is committed to me. He's in love with me. I was so touched. And I liked the commitment, the depth of feeling. I admire that. That's how he didn't win me by calling me on the phone and making love to me. At first I hung up on it. But after I heard that song, then when he called me up and made love to me, I would be gone for a couple of hours. I would just run to my bed and imagine it. And I felt so dirty and sinful. And I asked God to make a way for me to love this man in righteousness and honor. I said, why? I said, when I was a teenage girl, I asked you to break up every relationship that wasn't your will and to only let me marry in your will. Why did you give me the husband that I have and let me have my dream man after I'm married and it's immoral for me to go to him? Jesus explained later in one of our many conversations that he needed me to go into that marriage to undo some rigidity that I had developed as a young lady. But yet he said he was proud of me for being a virgin. And it's true. If I hadn't gone into that marriage, it's very possible that I never would have recognized that Brent was my soulmate. Because I had to understand who I was first. And this is Jesus' problem. He's not going to recognize his soulmate until he accepts who he is. That's what I needed to do. So Rule 13 said, oh, this makes sense. Zach has a nice singing voice too. Mostly I like his sex sounds though. She is so different from me. Did you hang out with this boy a lot? And I said, yeah, he sang this song. And I had a crush on him for years after that. No, he hung out with me when I was 14. Then we both went to senior high. That was when I was in junior high. And in our concert chorus at Miami Palmetto Senior High School with Dr. Richard Bullman as our teacher, we had to sing solos for midterms and finals, and he sang this song for one of his solos, and it seemed so sincere. I had a crush on him after that. I see, so you did not talk to him not in senior high, no, only junior high. Well, in 9th grade, he used to walk me to school in junior high, but when he went to senior high, he ignored me. It was a crush from afar. Oh, he walked you to school? Yeah, but I said, the good news is I have a guy who has a heart like him right now, my Brent. He said, was it because he was a neighbor that he walked you? And I said, yeah, he lived close to me. I never let him know that I had a crush on him. When he was walking me to school, we were just friends. I got the crush on him after I heard him sing that song. I imagine if I told him how I felt, that his response would have been like Lakshmi's was to Jesus. And 13 said, maybe. And then that's probably why I never let him know. He was the only guy I had a crush on in high school. I was real picky. Jesus was like, when he went to God's school, there were all these goddish women that liked him, but he only wanted Lakshmi. He was like me. Real picky. I found this guy's devotion and commitment to his woman very attractive. The way he sang that song, honey, I was just so impressed. So Brent should sing to you at home as foreplay, 13 said. And I said, I also admired his taste in women. If I could hear Brent sing, it would be over. And then she said, oh, you would orgasm so hard you'd pass out. Well, I'm not a Jesuit, so I wouldn't pass out. But yeah, I mean, I might get excited, you know. It would depend on the song. He said, what if you sing this one, the honey song, I mean? Oh, yeah, that would turn me on. I find Brent's devotion to a good woman very attractive. And then 13 said, yes, he's like Mr. Darcy. I said, exactly. And then I said, who's in the room with you, 13? And she said, Zach Knight and Lakshmi were with her. I said, very intimate crowd. The other men are listening on their computers. And I said, where's Jesus right now? And she said, he's asleep on the couch in Brent's old quarters on Church of Gail. He's been banned from my apartment. That therapy must be really rough on him, I said. He seems to be sleeping a lot. Brent, what has been Dallas Theological Seminary's reaction to what's going on with Jesus? And then Brent told 13 that they're using, Brent said that they're using my videos in their classes now. And I said, how are they using them? Brent said, for a teaching tool to study more about Jesus. And then I said, how's Gabriel Chana reporting on Jesus right now? And Rule 13 said, Gabriel Chana Fox News is maintaining Jesus' privacy while he's in therapy. I said, did my last video help with Jesus' therapy? And 13 said, it seemed very insightful. He has not told us. So you Christians out there, I understand how you feel. I actually was angry at God the Father for canceling the Bible. But I've had time to think about it. And I realized that he had to do that. I do believe that Jesus created the human race in order to have a church bride. In order to create a way to have a fantasy with Lakshmi, because she turned him down for marriage and sex. And Jesus, God the Father, apparently knew that Jesus needed a goddess wife all along, that he couldn't have a human race bride. And so the way to approach the Bible is to view it as a history book. All of the prophecies have been canceled. Okay? There will be no rapture, there will be no second coming, no millennial reign, and we don't know what's going to happen to Satan. God the Father, my reaction at first, I was testing God the Father out. I thought he was going, that he was being heartless, because Jesus almost died because Satan beat him up, and I thought the way he handled it, that, he was being mean to Jesus. So I kind of tested him, and I was going to make a post at my website where I called him unromantic and dumb. And Jesus said, my Father has a message for you, Gail. He said he wants you to read Jonah chapter 4. So I read Jonah chapter 4, and it was about Jonah under the juniper tree. And I'm still puzzled over who got right. Because Jonah was moping under the juniper tree because Nineveh repented of their sins and got right. So I knew I was angry that Jesus didn't kill Satan and that God the Father saved his life. So I guess maybe Satan's going to get right. I was thinking if it's possible that Jesus learns who he is and he finds true love. Satan's going to see Jesus' happiness and realize what he's missing. So maybe Satan will get right. And then God the Father said, you also failed the test of Job. Because I called him dumb and unromantic. I'm not sure I really believe that, though. I was just kind of testing him out to see whether I felt like he really cared about Jesus, and I think he does. I think he's a very strategic deity. In other words, he knew he'd be canceling the Bible all along. You might say, but the Bible says that not one word or jot or tittle will pass away till all these things be fulfilled. Yeah, but God the Father canceled the Bible, folks. It's kind of like the prophecy being overturned for Nineveh. Okay? That's the attitude God the Father wants us to have towards the Bible being canceled. Okay? Apparently, some evil people are going to get right. I look at it this way. Let me just tell you, I think we're going to need to revamp the doctrinal statement for Christianity. The Bible is not a complete account of history. From what I know about with my talks with Jesus and the gods, God the Father created a bunch of deities first, probably billions, trillions of years ago. There are an infinite number of deities out there. There's Zeus, Apollo, Buddha, Lakshmi, Muhammad. They were all created eons ago. And God the Father has a deity wife who is Jesus' mother. We don't know much about her because they haven't talked much about her. It appears the deities can sin because we have two deities, Shakpona and Kali, who side with Satan. There may be others. It appears the only infallible deity is God the Father. Okay, a lot of Christians have misinterpreted the Bible to think that Jesus and the Holy Spirit and God the Father, the Trinity, is true. I was telling Jesus when we revamped the doctrinal statement, we should probably pattern it after the Dallas Theological Seminary statement, but edit it. Okay? One thing I think we should state is that there are an infinite number of deities out there, and they all have their own plans of salvation. Not all of them operate from earth. We know that Buddha does, Muhammad does, the Hindu gods and goddesses do, and there are others. Earth is Jesus's pet project, and I think he created it in order to have a human race bride, which God has canceled. I've been working really hard on trying to ensure that this deity remains happy. Because if Jesus isn't happy, that won't be good for us earthlings. Yeah, so I've been really working hard on that. He's very upset about his Bible being canceled. But Jesus, you have a lot of support. We humans are a forgiving, tolerant lot. And I know that when you find yourself, and however you revamp Christianity, whether he infuses some Buddhism into it or Hinduism, I believe that there are going to be some Christians who will still follow you. We don't expect you to be perfect. We understand now that the only infallible deity is God the Father. But we just want you to be authentic and true to yourself. Jesus has a beautiful heart. I have been dealing with him since 2012. And once he finds who he is, he's going to construct probably a beautiful Christian faith that will increase tolerance and diversity in the earth and make us all love each other more. And that's what I think he's going to do. And I think he will still have a big following. The rigid Christians who are not ready to give up. See, let me tell you something. You Christians that are determined to believe that the Bible has not been canceled, you're like Jonah, like what God the Father said. Your reaction is like Jonah. You're moping under the juniper tree because the prophecy has been overturned. Okay? So you need to stop quoting the prophecies from the Bible. God the Father has canceled them. Apparently, maybe Satan's going to get right. The prophecy has been overturned. So we need to quit moping under the juniper tree and go forward. Okay? When Jesus finds himself, I think about half of the evangelical Christians will be open to the new path that Christianity is going to go on. Some of them are just Jesus. I know from my conversations with Jesus that he hasn't been too happy with the way some Christians have interpreted his Bible. They've interpreted it far too rigidly and not the way he intended. So just remember that. I do believe that when Jesus does find himself, he will be using me and Brent to show the world the new way. Okay? Now, Brent is an honors graduate of Dallas Theological Seminary, as well as being a medical doctor. So, yeah, just remember that the Bible has been canceled by God the Father, kind of like the prophecy got overturned for Nineveh. Let's not respond like Jonah did and mope under the juniper tree, Christians. Okay? I know you're saying, I understand how you feel. I have an honorary doctorate from Dallas Theological Seminary. I understand how you feel. I love the Bible. I loved the Bible. But I've come to terms with it. Now, what's really interesting is when Jesus was laying in a coma, reading the Bible actually made it worse for Jesus. because Baphomet put a spell on all the pages of the Bible so that I would interpret them according to his interpretation, and I had to stop reading the Bible because it was almost killing Jesus. So we got to be real careful. You don't want to do like I did when I was a King James Bible only fanatic. You don't want to be worshiping a book. Okay? That's what I did. That's idolatry. Don't worship a book. That's the sin of idolatry. It doesn't matter. Idolatry is when you worship anything above God. Even if it's something that's very good, like the Bible. Don't do that. That's what I did. Jesus was angry at me over that. He said, Gail, that's the sin of idolatry. It would be like, he said, you're worshiping the Bible would be like how you felt when Keanu Reeves took his sex dummy out on a date and treated it like it was you. He said, how did that make you feel? I said, oh yeah, I understand. That was a really good analogy, Jesus. He said, that's how I feel when Christians worship the Bible over me. He said, it's just got history in it and prophecies, but it's not meant to replace me. I don't want people, he said, worshiping that Bible over me. So remember that now, as the Bible has been canceled. You are to view it just as a history book. The prophecies have been overturned. We don't want to respond like Jonah did in Jonah chapter 4. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and post this, and